Hi everyone, Andrew from WiZDOM here, and I am super excited to be bringing you this week's topic. It's all about WiZDOM Central and a really exciting feature that we've just released in the latest update. This feature is called additional borrowing, and what it does is bank-based servicing live real-time from anywhere. So what that means is as long as your information is up to date and accurate in WiZDOM Central, it can calculate your additional borrowing on the basis of bank borrowing anytime, any place, anywhere. So let me show that to you now. So here I'm logged into WiZDOM Central and I'm on the dashboard of a pretty typical client scenario that we often see. So here we have John and Jane Smith. They live in Sydney, they're married, they have a couple of children. They've got a owner-occupied residential property, and of course, they've got an investment property as well that is owned in a trust. If we come further down the dashboard, we can see that from an income perspective, John is earning $200,000 a year PAYG, and Jane is earning $65,000. Of course, we've got rental income coming in from the investment property as well. Further down, we can see the value of the owner-occupied is 1.1 million, owing 600,000. And 975,000 owing 380 for the investment property. Now, what this really cool feature that I was talking about, which is additional borrowing, you may not have seen this change in the profile, but if you come back up here to where the calculations are, you can see under additional borrowing, we've got calculate and additional borrowing with extra income. If you click either of those, you will start to navigate through into this new section and this new fantastic calculator that we have. So here we're on the My Capacity page, which can also be navigated to down the left-hand side in the table here by clicking on My Capacity. And so if you click here on additional borrowing, we're going to be taken through to this new additional borrowing calculator. So again, immediately a walkthrough opens and you can just follow your nose with regard to this. It just tells you about how this works. And as we step through this, it's just checking the detail that has been input into WiZDOM Central, because of course this all automatically preloads from the information that's been provided. So number of adults we've got is 2, which is correct. Number of dependents is 2, also correct. And, the postcode which you live in, which calculates into total living expenses. If that's all correct, of course, I can just go through to next. And again, if I need to change any of this information, I can click on that, highlight that, and change. If all of the incomes aren't there for any reason, I've also got the opportunity to be able to create a new PAYG income, or alternately, a new self-employed income as well. So again, if that's correct, I don't need to highlight or do anything. I can just click through into the next one. This makes sure that the current rental income is correct and that Lancelot property at $650 a week is right. So I go, no worries, that's correct. And of course, we've got no self-employed income within this particular situation. And then just double checking here, because this is really important as well, is to go, well, have we got the right numbers with regard to, the limits of the various loans in place? So here I've got the investment loan has a limit of $400,000, which is correct. And of course, I've got 2 different types of principal place of residence loan, the $550 and the $50,000 on top, which is also correct. And then, the credit card has a $20,000 limit as well. Now, if there was any liabilities, missing there, I can obviously create them from create a new liability. Or if any of these are incorrect, I can highlight that and click on next, and it'll take me through to be able to fix those numbers up. So this is really just a second level of checking with regard to making sure all these numbers are correct, featuring into this total calculation. So if all of that is right, then I can go to the next one, which is, here is a choice between automatically this calculator will provide a household expenditure measure, which is updated quarterly. And that is on the basis of how many adults, how many children, what postcode you live in, and, of course, what level of incomes that you have, and household expenditure measure is automatically adjusted for those and calculated. Otherwise, if I prefer to, if I have higher, significantly higher or significantly lower expenses than that because of how I live, well, then I can choose instead to complete the My Expenses table and apply that to this level of calculation, or apply this to this calculator as well. So in this case, I'm happy to use the household expenditure measure and I can click that through. And then obviously that just confirms everything else. So what this calculator does is it provides a number with regard to if we were to do an application on behalf of John and Jane Smith, how much money could they borrow from a bank in addition to what they currently have in debt? And what this calculator tells us is that right now, John and Jane Smith could afford to borrow another $400,344 or thereabouts. Of course, this doesn't allow for things like bank policy or anything else like that, but generally speaking, as a very good approximation for what their additional borrowing capacity looks like, that absolutely is a very good indication of that number. Now, just before I go into what additional borrowing with extra income does and what that, the situations that can allow for, I just wanted to show you how you can sort of play with this situation and play with this scenario to be able to deal with different situations. So for argument's sake, if we wanted to know how much more money could they borrow if they didn't have this credit card anymore, they chose that they could extinguish that and get rid of it, well, all we would need to do is turn that line off, and then the calculation will automatically adjust for what their additional borrowing could look like. So as you can see, it's now gone to $494,000 from the number that we had before. So that $20,000 credit card, does significantly make a difference to how much borrowing, how much money they can borrow overall. So let's assume that we're going to go and buy an investment property. Well, that investment property is going to come with extra income. How do we, adjust this calculation to be able to allow for that? Well, we've kind of built that in really simply and easily into this calculator. So this little box over here is essentially doing exactly that. So let's assume we want to add a rental income. Okay, well, if we're going to go and buy a $400,000 property plus a little bit extra, to be able to buy, well, let's assume that that's going to give us $450 in extra rental per week. Okay, so we can just put in their rental income, $450, and that's weekly. And if I click on simulate, then you can see that this additional borrowing with extra income has changed straight away. So now we know that that extra $450 a week in rental is going to now mean that we can borrow $506,598. So again, not only can you adjust for any decreases or any changes in this existing, but of course you can also add extra income into your situation as well and see what difference that could make. So let's assume for a second that rather than looking at, an additional rental, what happens if Jane, gets a, I don't know, $20,000 pay rise? If she goes for a promotion and gets a $20,000 pay rise, well, what does that mean? So I select additional income and I look at that, that's 20,000 annually, click on simulate, and that says, okay, now we can borrow $513,863. So very quickly, you can start to get a really great handle on, okay, how does individual changes in my financial situation lead to different changes in my overall borrowing? And I think you can get a really great idea of, where you're at and what you could potentially change to be able to make differences to your overall borrowing and what that means for your property journey and where you can go from here. So a couple of things you do need to know about this with regard to the additional borrowing calculator. Firstly, obviously, this is only an estimation. The very best way that you can ever get great, accurate borrowing and borrowing ability, where we can check against bank policy and other things that we need to be able to deal with as part of the application process, is of course dealing with a great finance professional, that can do all of this for you and make sure that we get to an absolute number that is, deliverable, and we can be confident with delivering that number into your situation. But again, this is a great indication, and you can do this very quickly, very simply in your own time. The other thing is, and I do need your help with regard to this, is that obviously we've put an enormous amount of work into this calculator, but it doesn't mean that it's perfect. I would treat this as right now, we are beta testing this. We expect that there is probably going to be some things that are not necessarily correct, or it's not dealing with numbers in any particular way. So please, 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 as you use it and as you experience it, if you have any issues with it, if it's doing something that doesn't make sense, if you encounter any bugs, please, please, please let us know so that we can continue to improve this and get better and better outcomes, for all of the users of this facility. And the other thing that I do need to talk about is the fact that obviously this is a WiZDOM Central Premium offer, which means you do need to be one of the premium members. With regard to premium, again, it's not just this particular calculator that gets you. There is also all of the other premium features that are available to you as well, and hopefully you are taking advantage of, and that includes the overnight updating automatically, or the ability to be able to connect all of your bank accounts, so all of those numbers update automatically every night, overnight. There is the property valuation and all of the other property reporting that's available to you. The third party authority, and of course this additional borrowing calculator, which is a fantastic tool with regard to getting a handle on where you're at. So look, I didn't want to take up too much of your time with this new feature, but as I say, I am super, super excited. We've been doing an enormous amount of testing on this, and we're really confident that the results that it gives are quite accurate with regard to borrowing. Again, it's not going to be the very, very, very best number that's available to you. It's not going to be the most conservative number either, but I'm so excited for what this means for everyone, being able to get a great indication of bank-based borrowing, for the information that's already in there and available in your WiZDOM Central, is really exciting. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully hearing some great feedback with regard to how it's helped all of you get an even better handle on all of your financial situations and what that means for your property journeys. So as always, thank you. I really appreciate your attention. I really appreciate all of the feedback that I get on all of these videos. And I really, really hope that this helped you with regard to your property journey. Until next time, as always, happy investing and bye.